Everyone, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another Paint With Me nautical themed video. And here is the look at the card that we will be creating today. This is a 1-layer standard size card, 4¼ by 5½ inches, featuring, which may look familiar, our stamp set Sail. So I have done another video featuring the same stamp set, but this is just another take on using the sailboats to create a very clean and simple card. So here is that stamp set, 30-842 Set Sail. And this stamp set and all of the supplies I'm using will be shown up on screen at the very end of the video. So if you want to check them out in more detail, the paint colors, the ink colors, the stamps, everything will be there. You can just hit pause at the end of the video to check that out. Now I am going to continue painting with my Distress Ink re-inkers. I'm using them as watercolors. So I've just got a cheap plastic tray here that I think I picked up at like Target or Walmart. I'm just putting a dab of these colors. You can actually use even less, but you just need a tiny little drop. A little bit goes a long ways when you're using this re-inker ink to paint. And then I will be ready to go. Now, if you don't have a palette like this, you can use any type of non-porous surface, even like an old plate you could use to dab your colors on. Now I went ahead and pre-stamped this image onto Canson 140-pound watercolor paper, and I used Desert Sand Memento ink. That's my favorite type of ink for the no line look. You can see here, even as I'm painting on sort of the water down here, that when this ink goes over the stamped image really takes on the color of the ink. So you don't completely lose your stamping. I don't feel like I have to strain my eyes to keep track of where I'm painting or what I'm painting. But when you're all done, it does get a no line look. Now I know you can still see the bottom of the boat here, and I will show you as we continue working how to hide that. So you don't have to mask it off or anything. You can stamp the whole boat, and I'll show you how to hide that. And here I'm just going in, sort of was creating this watery background. Decided I wanted it to go a little bit higher here. So I am mixing that in. I love using this sort of turquoise bluish green when I'm using these sailboats. I feel like then whatever color you decide to put on your sail will really pop. I love how other colors look with this particular color of blue, green, turquoise. So I've kind of finished the bottom here, and I'm going to dry that with my heat gun. And you can see that these colors, when you paint with your re-inkers, they stay pretty true to color even as they dry, which I like. I know then what I'm working with as it's what it's going to look like when it's dry is pretty much how I'm painting it. So I took some of that color, I moved it up in my palette and mixed in more water. So I'm using the same color, but it's much more watered down, and that way it will be lighter but still tie into the sea below. Now in painting the sky, I don't want it to be perfect. I want sort of some areas of light in there, sort of giving the hint of some clouds in the sky. So I had to restrain myself because I tend to want to just keep adding more and more, and pretty soon I have just a very solid blocked in image, and I wanted this to look more natural, more free flowing. Actually, even like blotchy would maybe be the term to use. I was actually going for that for the sky up here. I didn't want to overwork it, which for me takes restraint. So I'm going to dry that. I'm drying in between the layers. Sometimes I just dry things when I don't know what to do next. And sometimes I do that because I don't want to paint in two areas that are adjacent to each other and have the colors flow into each other and bleed into each other. If they're dry, that's much less likely to happen. So I'm moving now on to the sail. And I've been dying to do a bright red sail. I just think that is so dynamic. Now this card here, you could pretty much put any sentiment on this card, and it could work for any occasion. Also, these stamps are great for masculine cards, which are sometimes very hard to create. Or for me, sometimes I don't enjoy creating them because I want to paint something pretty. And so I feel like with these sailboats, it's just very fun to have something different to paint. I still feel like it's very pretty and there's room for a lot of playing around with your colors, but it still can yield a masculine card. I'm just adding some shading to this. Trying to keep a little bit with that looser look, so I did leave like a little white highlight there on the sail where it's not completely painted in. Now off to the side I do have my water and a napkin where I can dab off my paintbrush. That way I don't go with too much water. If you find when you're painting that things are just moving too fast, flowing all over the place, you may just have too much water on your paintbrush. So keep a napkin, a paper towel handy so that you can blot off your paintbrush before you pick up your color. So you rinse off your paintbrush to clean it, and then you can blot it off before you go in and grab your color. So I thought maybe I would go with all red on here, but I decided to just kind of keeps morphing as it goes, this sail here. So I did a very light watered down version of the red, and then I'm adding the stripes in. And I'll get the little flag up here. Now you can see on this particular image, I did know how I wanted to do the sky and how I wanted to do the sea. So I did those first, which I'm very glad I did. I would not want to be going back in to paint that sky right next to those red sails because those would very much want to bleed into the sky, and I didn't want a red sky. So if you know what you want before you start, and you know you're going to do like a real bold color on the sail, or this would even apply like say you're painting a flower, then do your background first before you do like your boldest color, because that's going to be more likely to bleed and blend. Here I'm just adding some color to the boat. You can see here I can grab some of those colors and mix them together. So even if you don't have a lot of Distress Ink re-inkers, you can mix them together just like you would with any other paint. And this boat takes a few twists and turns till I'm really happy with how it looks. So you can always play around with your watercolor. It's very forgiving. And like always, I usually start light and end up going darker. That's just helping me stay in my comfort zone. I don't feel as nervous to put color down when I go a little bit lighter and then build up more and more. And you can see here I ended up going mostly with the brown on this boat, and I really liked how that contrasted with the sea or the ocean that it's in. Now I felt like this sail looked a little too pink, so at the time I decided to add some yellow. Watching this video now I think, oh, it looked kind of good before. Maybe I shouldn't have added the yellow, but it is what it is, and I'm still happy with how it turned out. But it's funny how sometimes in the moment what you think it needs, going back and watching it come together, I think, oh, maybe it didn't really need that yellow on there. Now I'm just using some Arteza gouache paint. This is titanium white. I wanted it right out of the tube so it's very opaque, and I am brushing that onto the water and making sure to cover that area where the bottom part of the boat was still showing, but it needed to be underwater. And this, because it is opaque, is going to cover that up. So you don't have to mask that boat. You can just use this gouache paint to cover it up. You could also use like an acrylic paint, but I do love the way the gouache mixes and matches or mixes together with that watercolor beneath it. Now I have an Arteza twine marker here. It has a very fine tip. This is water soluble, so I'm doing it at the very end so that this color did not bleed as I was working on any parts of the ocean, but I did get like a little, I don't know, like a fleck of it there, and I could lift that up with my paintbrush just very carefully by blending it with a little bit of water. Now I decided, I thought, oh, I think that needs to be a little darker, so I grabbed another twine marker. You can see that just teeny tiny fine tip is so perfect for adding in these details when you're doing no line watercolor. Now the sentiment is from our 30-845 Swimming By. I did a little stamp surgery on this and trimmed it so I could stamp one half of the sentiment to the left of the sails and the other half on the right. And I decided to go with a tone-on-tone look with the colors up in the sky. So here's a look at that finished card. Very simple, one layer, clean and simple, but great fun to paint the sailboat and the water. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, as well as Instagram, our website, and our blog. And all of those, including the stamps I've used today, are listed and linked down in the YouTube description box. And here's the supply list as promised. Happy stamping!